There are words that do not merely pass through the air like sound, but carve themselves into the fabric of reality. Words that hum with the resonance of ages, vibrating at a frequency the modern world has long forgotten. Among these, there exists a prayer, a sequence of syllables so potent that empires have risen and fallen by its whisper, so dangerous that it was scrubbed from temple walls, burned from sacred texts, and outlawed in nations that feared its power. This is not mysticism. This is memory. A 5,000-year-old incantation, older than the pyramids, older than the written word, older than the gods we now name in history books. It is said that when spoken with perfect intent, this prayer does not ask the divine for grace, it commands the universe to obey. But why would such a thing be banned? Why would 42 nations, some of which no longer exist on any map, declare its utterance a crime punishable by death? The answer lies in what this prayer unlocks. Not miracles, not blessings, but the dormant potential coiled within every human being, the slumbering force that our ancestors knew as the God shard buried in the flesh. Modern science might call it junk DNA, those mysterious strands of genetic code that seem to serve no purpose until activated. There are records, fragmented but persistent, of those who wielded this prayer and found themselves capable of feats that defy biology. Healers who closed wounds with a touch, seers who mapped the future in the flicker of a candle flame, warriors who walked through hails of arrows untouched. These were not saints or sorcerers. They were men and women who remembered what we have been made to forget. Consider the irony. We live in an age of unprecedented technological advancement, yet we are spiritually illiterate. We have unlocked the secrets of the atom but remain strangers to the power of our own breath. This prayer is a key, one that does not open a door, but dissolves the illusion that there was ever a door at all. Its words are not a petition to some distant deity, but a wake-up call to the divinity that has always lived within the human nervous system. To speak it is to remember, and to remember is to reclaim. Yet here we encounter the first great paradox. Knowledge this potent is never lost. It is only hidden. The prayer survives, in the chants of Tibetan monks who swear it bends time, in the underground glyphs of Egyptian initiates who encoded it in the geometry of tombs, in the fever dreams of Renaissance alchemists who called it the verbum perditum, the lost word. It surfaces in fragments, in half-remembered hymns, in the placebo effect that somehow heals when science says it cannot. The bans, the burnings, the executions of those who dared to speak it, these were not the actions of men afraid of a myth. They were the desperate measures of those who knew, bone deep, that the prayer works. So we arrive at the threshold. This is not a history lesson. This is a transmission. To proceed is to accept a simple, terrifying premise. You are never ordinary. The prayer is proof. This is the first truth that must be understood, not to diminish its power, but to clarify its nature. Magic implies superstition, the suspension of natural law. What this 5,000-year-old sequence of words accomplishes is something far more profound. It aligns the speaker with laws so fundamental that modern physics is only now stumbling toward their edges. There are three pillars upon which its mechanics rest, three invisible architectures that transform sound into sovereignty. Every word we speak is a shape. This is not metaphor. Linguistic archaeologists have uncovered traces of this prayer in Sumerian cuneiform tablets, where the wedge-shaped markings themselves were designed to mirror the waveform the utterance produced when spoken aloud. When certain syllables pass through the human vocal cords at specific frequencies, they create standing waves in the electromagnetic field surrounding the body, what mystics call the aura, and what quantum biologists now recognize as the biofield. The forbidden prayer operates on the same principle that shatters a wine glass when an opera singer hits the perfect note, resonance. But where the opera singer breaks glass, this sequence of sounds breaks limitations. The second mechanism lives in the paradox between command and surrender. The prayer's opening phrase, translated roughly as "I am the hollow bone," contains a neurological trick. fMRI studies of Tibetan monks chanting similar mantras show a sudden synchronization between the prefrontal cortex, the seat of will, and the default mode network, the source of ego. This creates what researchers call a transient hypoegoic state, not loss of self, but liberation from the small self. The genius of the ancient phrasing is that it mimics the brainwave patterns of deep meditation while maintaining the directed intentionality of a warrior's focus. It is not passive reception of divine power, but active collaboration with it. Here we encounter the darkest reason for the bans. The prayer was not suppressed because it didn't work, it was suppressed because it worked too well. The earliest documented prohibition comes from the Edict of Nippur, circa 2200 BCE, where King Shulgi ordered the tongues cut out of anyone caught teaching the star song that makes men as gods. Similar edicts appear across millennia: the burning of the Alexandria scrolls that contained its phonetic notations, the Vatican's 13th century purge of Cathar monks who allegedly used it to levitate stone, the unexplained disappearance of Nikola Tesla's research into frequency-triggered human potential in 1932. The pattern is clear. Empires cannot control those who remember how to access the technology of consciousness itself. Yet the most startling evidence comes from modern laboratories. In 2017, a declassified DARPA study accidentally replicated one of the prayer's key physiological effects. Test subjects exposed to 7.83 Hz infrasound, the Schumann resonance of Earth itself, exhibited temporary spikes in pain tolerance, accelerated healing, and, most controversially, brief episodes of precognition. The researchers terminated the experiment. The frequency used was the exact vibrational signature produced when the prayer's central mantra is spoken correctly. This is not mysticism. This is mechanics. There is a story carved into the walls of a hidden chamber beneath the Temple of Edfu, one that no Egyptologist has ever been able to fully translate. The hieroglyphs depict a priest standing before a great coiled serpent, his mouth open in song while golden light pours from his palms. Above him floats an inverted pyramid, its apex pointing downward toward his third eye. For centuries, this was dismissed as mere mythology, until a team of archaeoacoustics researchers in 2019 discovered something extraordinary. The chamber itself was designed as a perfect resonance chamber, its dimensions mathematically calibrated to amplify specific sound frequencies. When they played a reconstructed melody based on the wall carvings, the sandstone walls emitted measurable electromagnetic pulses. The melody, a musical encoding of the very prayer we now examine. This is how sacred knowledge survives extermination, not in scrolls or scriptures, but in symbols that bypass the censoring mind to speak directly to the awakened soul. The prayer's true history is written in these allegories, stories that seem like fantasy until science catches up to their truths. Consider the Vedic legend of the sage Narada, who sought the secret song that dissolves illusion. After decades of searching, he was given a single syllable to chant, a sound so potent it immediately transported him to a realm where time flowed backward. When he returned, his body had not aged, but his hair had turned white. The syllable was later revealed to be the first phoneme of our forbidden prayer. This myth encodes a physiological truth. When vocalized at the correct pitch, certain sounds trigger telomerase activation, the enzyme that repairs aging DNA. Modern biohackers using targeted frequency therapy have documented similar, if less dramatic, effects, particularly in studies involving Tibetan monks who practice tumo breathing alongside mantra recitation. Then there is the Babylonian account of the real Tower of Babel, not a structure of brick and mortar, but a collective vocal ritual. Ancient tablets describe thousands of initiates standing in concentric circles, chanting a harmonic sequence that allegedly opened gates in the sky. The biblical version claims God thwarted them by confusing their languages. The older, unredacted texts tell a different story. The ritual worked. producing luminous phenomena so destabilizing to the social order that the priesthood deliberately fractured the chant into disconnected fragments. These fragments became the root sounds of all modern languages, which is why linguists find the same phonetic patterns in every culture's sacred words. The complete sequence, a proto-version of our prayer. Perhaps most chilling is the 8th century Celtic tale of the Lebhar Nahuida, Book of the Dun Cow. It describes a monk who discovered an angelic alphabet that, when spoken aloud, caused wounds to heal and blind eyes to see. When local rulers demanded he teach their warriors, the results were catastrophic. Men gained in human strength but lost the ability to distinguish friend from foe. The monastery was burned, the book buried. In 1986, construction workers in County Clare unearthed a lead box containing vellum fragments with strange glyphs. When linguists reconstructed the pronunciation, test subjects exhibited a 400% spike in adrenaline and a temporary insensitivity to pain. The glyphs matched phonetic symbols found in the Nag Hammadi Gnostic texts, alongside a warning: "This is the language of the rulers. Do not speak it unless you wish to become one." These are not mere legends. They are case studies. The moment we speak of practical application, we must first dispel the most dangerous myth about this prayer, that it is a tool for personal gain. History shows with bloody clarity what happens when the sacred is weaponized. The kings who used it to extend their reigns died screaming. The warriors who chanted it before battle often turned their swords on themselves. The prayer does not bend reality to your will. It dissolves the illusion that you are separate from reality's flow. With this understanding, we can explore how to integrate its essence, not its literal syllables, into modern life. For those not prepared to risk the full invocation and the consequences of wielding power prematurely, there exists a shadow version, a single breath technique distilled from the prayer's core mechanism. Inhale deeply while mentally hearing the first syllable. Scholars suggest it vibrates at the back of the throat like a whispered arm. As you exhale, visualize the sound traveling down your spine like lightning grounding itself. This triggers a micro version of the full prayer's effects, a fleeting but measurable synchronization between heart and brain. Biofeedback studies at the HeartMath Institute show this particular rhythm coherence pattern boosts immune function by 30% and accelerates muscle recovery. It is the difference between swallowing a candle flame and harnessing the sun, but sometimes a candle is all we need. Modern neuroscience confirms what the ancients encoded in the prayer's structure. Time is not a straight line, but a spiral. The prayer's most controversial aspect is its alleged ability to fold temporal perception, a claim supported by 2023 Princeton Pear Lab experiments showing focused intent can influence quantum events before they occur. Practically, this means the prayer works backward as much as forward. Those who report success often describe a paradoxical sensation, the feeling that they are not invoking something new, but remembering what they had always known. Try this. 4-3 mornings, upon waking, stand barefoot on earth, or its closest approximation, and declare, "I choose the timeline where I already am who I seek to become." Note the synchronicities that follow. This is not manifestation. It is recognition. Here lies the great irony. The very forces that suppressed the prayer ensured its survival through mundanity. Its core frequencies exist in the hum of high-voltage power lines, 7.8 Hz, the resonance of quartz crystals, even the idle whistling of children. A 2019 MIT study found that workers in Tesla coil factories unconsciously hummed melodies containing the prayer's intervals, reporting unusual bursts of creativity and accidental discoveries. The universe conspires to remember what institutions try to erase. You need not seek the prayer. You need only stop drowning it out. The Tibetan Terma tradition warns of sunrise words, phrases that lose power when exposed to unprepared minds. This prayer is not for public performance, not for monetization, not for ego. Modern practitioners who leaked fragments online often report bizarre technological malfunctions, sudden illnesses, or eerie streaks of bad luck that cease only when they ritually retract the shared information. The prayer is not cursed, it is self-protecting. Like a scalpel in a child's hand, some tools demand maturity. If you feel compelled to shout it from rooftops, you have misunderstood its purpose. This is the final secret, not of the prayer itself, but of why it was feared enough to be banned across continents and millennia. The syllables are not the source of power, they are merely the tuning fork that resonates with what has always existed within you. Every prohibition, every burned text, every severed tongue was part of a desperate effort to make humanity forget one irreducible truth. You were designed to operate outside the limits they imposed. We began this journey speaking of superhuman abilities, but we arrive at something far more radical, the realization that there is no such thing as superhuman. There is only the unshackled human. The prayer does not grant strength beyond nature. It strips away the cultural hypnosis that made you believe you were weak. Those who first crafted these words left us a map not to transcend our humanity, but to reclaim it. Two paths now lie before you. The first is simple: exit this video, dismiss what you've encountered as fantasy or exaggeration, and return to a world where power is something given or taken but never awakened. The second is to recognize that the real ban was never enforced by kings or priests, but by your own conditioned disbelief. Every time you dismiss a synchronicity as coincidence, every time you attribute your intuition to randomness, every time you assume your physical limits are fixed, you reinforce the edicts of those who feared what would happen if humanity remembered its birthright. You need not utter a single word to begin. Start with the body, the original resonator. When you feel fatigue, hum a single tone at the back of your throat and observe how the vibration alters your energy. When faced with pain, visualize the affected area humming with golden light, a practice now validated by Harvard's placebo studies showing measurable tissue changes from focused intent. These are not substitutes for the full prayer, they are proof that its essence was always your natural language. Power is never free. Those who awaken through this prayer throughout history, the healers, the seers, the unstoppable, all paid the same price. They could never pretend to be small again. Once you remember you are the lightning, you can no longer believe you are the storm's victim. This is why the bans persist in subtler forms today, through distraction, through ridicule, through the systematic dismissal of anything that suggests human potential exceeds consumption and obedience. The prayer is not a secret. The prayer is a mirror. What you do next depends on whether you like what you see staring back. This is where the real conversation begins. Did you feel it? That tug at your DNA? That whisper of "I remember"? Drop a single word below, awakened if you're ready to go deeper, or banished if you felt this truth before but forgot. This isn't just comments, it's a resonance experiment. Every word shared here vibrates at the frequency of remembrance. Your like isn't just a click, it's a tuning fork. At 1,000 likes, this video becomes a living sigil. The algorithm will push it to exactly who needs to see it next, perhaps your past or future self. Turn on notifications with the bell, not to follow me, but because YouTube is about to start showing you very specific recommendations. The prayer works in mysterious ways.